Hi, everyone. Yes, you don't have to adjust your TV sets. The Midwest Medium podcast is back, but with a twist. We are introducing a new series, a limited series called Two Mediums in a Pod. And you might be asking yourself, well, June, there's just one of you. Why is it two mediums in a pod? Well, that's a great question. And I have an answer for you. My answer is we have a co-host for this really fun series that I'm excited to share with you, and her name is Ciara Titus. Before we dive into today's episode, I do want to tell you I do have an event coming up Saturday, January 31st. It's another massage and mediumship event that you probably have heard of if you have listened to this podcast before. Holly and I are doing it again in Coon Rapids starting at 10 o'clock in the morning, and it generally goes for about an hour and a half. And if you would like to sign up or if you have questions, you can email Holly at vhmassage21@gmail.com. I will make sure that that is in the show notes for easy access for you. It's really a lot of fun. If you're curious about it, we also have an episode on the podcast where Holly comes on as a guest and we talk about it. So you can check that out too if you have any questions about that. So, moving on, Happy New Year, by the way, everyone. We're recording this on January 1st. So, 2026 is really, really fresh. Um, anyway, I'm not quite sure when it'll air, but it truly is New Year's. So, moving on, Ciara Titus, as I had mentioned, is a medium who works for the Ascended Masters, Jesus, Mother Mary, Kuan Yin, by relaying their guidance and wisdom to her clients. She also uses her spiritual gifts to connect with spirit guides, guardian angels, and departed loved ones on the other side. Ciara works as a hospice chaplain in Orange County, California, providing spiritual guidance and counseling for people needing end of life care along with their families. Earning a Master of Arts degree in pastoral counseling and achieving board certification with the National Association of Catholic Chaplains, Ciara is also a Reiki master and continues her advanced studies with Chief Principal Oracle Marine, which is actually how we met. Ciara and I are in class together. So, without further ado, Ciara, welcome to the podcast.
Yes, thank you. I'm so honored to be here, and I'm so excited to start 2026 with you on this exciting journey of creating this podcast series. I just feel so honored and blessed to be a part of your life and to know you and the work that we're doing with under our teacher, Oracle Marine.
Yes, I'm so glad that I can finally share you with people in a different way. I talk to people about you and I tell them who you are and my classmates and they know who Oracle Marine is, but it's nice to introduce you to people in this different way. So I kind of want to go back to really the beginning, how all of this started for you, because I've learned that you don't just wake up one day and decide you're going to be a medium. That's not how it works. So what drew you to mediumship? What got you interested in it?
It is definitely a long journey, so I'll try to just hit the highlights. But it basically started around in 2016. I really had an identity shift because I was living in New York City. I just had my daughter, and I had recently gotten my second divorce. And I thought, okay, I am just not living the way that is making me happy and fulfilled. And I always felt really kind of restless because I am a very spiritual person, but I wasn't spiritually connected at the time. And I do believe all these things kind of happen to make me stop and really focus and pay attention to the decisions I was making in my life. And I wanted to be a better mom. So I kind of took everything in New York City and brought my daughter back here to Orange County to raise her as a single mom. And during that time, I was really kind of questioning my existence and whether or not God exists. And I had this near near death experience. I always say near death because I didn't actually die, but God did take my soul out of my body. And I remember it was like 2 or 3 in the morning, and I had actually been asking, are you there or do you exist? And he pulled my soul out. And I remember him saying, hold on to the bed and hold on to your daughter so you're not scared. And I remember my soul actually lifting up and I'm going towards the ceiling. And I had like a life review, and I was shown kind of the mistakes I was making. It was like a really brief life review because it was showing the mistakes I was making, how I was making myself sick, and how I wasn't using the gifts that I had been given, and why I was so depressed at the time. And that just triggered it. That all of a sudden made me start going into self-reflection. I started taking spiritual classes, and then it wasn't until about 2019 that I had met Oracle Marine, and I started taking classes from her. And, with the readings through her, I gained more insight into, my mission in life. And I wasn't per se a medium at the time. I had always had, I would say, spiritual gifts. Like even when I look back as a kid, I had a very kind of intuitive internal life. Like I was always had a lot of premonitions about the future. I remember even in like sixth grade, I was having visions of past lives that I had, but I didn't know how to share it with people, how to talk about it. Because I remember telling people like, whoa, I've been here before. I've seen this before. And people would just look at me, and of course they wouldn't understand because of,
Yeah. And they get freaked out. Yeah. I
yeah.
had that too as a child. I remember going to horse camp for a week and I'd been there before. And when I was asking the owner of the camp, like, do you know, like I was naming off my parents, my grandparents, like I've been here before. And this woman looked at me like I had three heads. So I know what you mean.
Yeah, and I think I remember around that age I started shutting my abilities down because I didn't have anybody to validate or to make it seem normal. So, and that was part of like what made me sick. Because actually at the age of 19, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And I think, and I know God has shown me that was because I was suppressing my abilities and my chakras at such an advanced level that I was actually physically making myself sick. And, as you know, with psychic gifts, you use your psychic channels, right? And so mine were just totally out of whack. So it was really a blessing to be able to discover Oracle Marine and the fact that she lives here in Orange County. I was able to start going to classes with her in person. And really, she taught me the foundation of using your spiritual abilities. And at the time, I didn't think I would end up doing it professionally. I just really was like, I just need answers.
Yeah. And you just want to
Yeah.
feel better and do better.
Yeah, I want to feel better and do better. And then as this time went on and I started using my spiritual gifts, I started getting connected more to my spirit guides, my angels, and the ascended masters. And that's when they started kind of giving me snippets of really like what my mission here on earth is, which is to work for them, use my spiritual gifts to help others. And the biggest thing was to be at the bedside of people who are dying to help pray for them. And that's when I kind of got the the push to pursue a master's degree, to become a chaplain, and then now as I work as a hospice chaplain, to be by people because I understand prayer is so important to the other side. It's so important to Jesus, and it really does help the soul transition and end up in a better position on the other side. Our prayers are absolutely pivotal and vital.
Right.
Yeah.
So I do want to talk about your chaplaincy, but first I want to focus just a tiny bit more on mediumship. What would you say is your favorite aspect of mediumship? Do you have like a favorite component of doing readings for people?
Yeah, you know what? I think the favorite part is really bringing, well, two things. Really bringing the departed loved ones in and seeing the transformation of the people that I'm reading for. we call them sitters. So the person who's sitting in front of me, if when their loved one comes in, and you see the emotional impact it creates in that person, and the sense of relief and comfort, knowing that their past loved one still exists and is very much still a soul with a personality, with thoughts, feelings, and how they're still really connected to the person here on earth. Like that love never goes away. And to see that validation, to see kind of the awakening that happens within a person once they realize that is really my favorite part. Um, and another favorite part is like, and this kind of relates to the chaplaincy, is when I'm there at the time of death, the veil lifts and I will see departed loved ones come into the room, and it just makes me realize that the world is so much more deeper and complex, but we're so connected to God on the other side. I think is also another favorite part of mine.
That's yeah, that's really neat. And you have such a unique position in your chaplaincy work to be at those really critical moments of the time of passing. Not only are you witnessing the soul leaving the body and being reunited with loved ones that have passed, but also I would imagine trying to do your best to comfort those that are still here on earth grieving the loss of their loved one.
Yeah, it's definitely complex. And there's definitely a lot of components, that you need to balance. And it's funny, I don't actually ever mention my mediumship to clients who are in hospice and to the family that are there. Just because at those moments I don't find it serves them, but it helps me stand in my own power and understand, that I'm not going to fall apart, because I do know that this is not the end. It's merely a transition. And it does help me comfort the family and even the one who's dying, because I do understand that this is not the end.
I think it's really a good point that you just made too about when you had said that you don't disclose your mediumship to your hospice clients, because I think grief is an important process for a person to go through. You probably get this question too, I'm assuming, but I get questions often where someone will reach out to me and say, my loved one passed 2 weeks ago, when can I have a reading? And what I tell people is that it's so different for each individual person and that the grieving process is important. So I love that you honor that for the families of your clients, and you're not just, hey, here's my card. Let's connect next month.
Yeah, I truthfully actually find it unethical. Like I don't want that
Yes.
to be my I don't know what you call it, like breeding ground for clients. Like
Oh,
I
absolutely.
can't do that. It just feels so wrong. Like if God directs them to me after the passing and they find me on the internet, like I can't stop that. But yeah, I think grief, and I don't feel like it serves them. Like, oh, don't be sad because I know that the soul is standing right next to me. Like that doesn't serve them. They
Right.
feel that loss. So I want to honor that and walk them through it without me being like, I can help you. I can, because it's not, that's not the time.
No, and it's not about you, it's about them and the loved one that they had just lost.
Exactly. And I really don't want to make it about them. Like as much as I want to be able to hold the room and hold that space, I also don't want it to be about me, right? I want to be kind
Right.
of this seamless, invisible bridge. But yeah, I don't want, yeah, I know, which is funny because people always ask, well, what do the hospice patients tell them when you can see the other people, the souls on the other side? And I'm like, I'm very kind and like not obvious about it. Like because someone will start like either reaching for somebody and they'll be like, Mom, and I'll be like, I can validate, like, yeah, your mom's here in the room. Perfect. I see her too. So it's okay for you to let go. It's okay for you to transition. They're waiting for you on the other side. Um, but yeah, I do keep it separate as much as it is connected.
Right. And I absolutely respect that. So now that just made a question pop in my mind. When you are doing that work and you are helping the souls transition to the other side, do they ever come back to you later? in some sort of visitation and maybe thank you for your work or ask you to pass a message on to somebody or what have you. Has that ever happened?
Yes, actually, I'm glad you mentioned it because I forget that that happens. But there's been quite a few times that the soul will visit me later, and they'll implant a vision of me in the room with them, and they'll thank me for praying with them. They'll thank me for being with the family, and it's such a cool validation. And it happens a lot when I'm not even expecting it. Like when I worked at the hospital, I would help somebody who just transitioned like in the ER. And then on my way home, they would visit me as somebody, I'm thinking of one particular where he visited me when I was driving home in the car and I kept hearing, thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh my God,
Wow.
it's making me emotional now. And I think that even gave me more confidence in the work that I'm doing and how important it is.
It's very important work. It's one thing that none of us can escape, death, death and taxes, as they say. So it's very important work, and not everyone has the honor or privilege of having their loved ones at bedside when they are dying. So it is wonderful for people like you who do the work that you do. If they don't have a family member or a friend that can be with them, at least they have you.
Yeah, actually, and I'm thinking what I feel so honored to be able to be there for somebody and it has happened a few times. I'm thinking of this one particular experience where we were in the ICU and it was a gentleman who was my age who they were going to take off life support. And he it was somewhat cognitive, like he was able to hold my hand, but the but his family would not stay there in the room for his passing. They actually left the hospital, and I assured them that I would stay with him through the whole transition. And and to be there to at that sacred moment. And that's actually when I did feel his grandmother and his father at the end of the bed calling him, calling his soul. And I actually saw his guardian angel too at the side of the bed. And Jesus actually also came in and was standing on the right hand of me. And I'm getting chills just thinking about it. Um, and afterwards, this soul thanked me for being there. And I was able to call the family and tell them about the experience. Not about all the spirit that I saw, but the fact that it was peaceful, peaceful transition, and I was there. And it was be very beautiful.
Now, can you give insight on why a family or close friends would not want to be present at the time of death? Is it just because it's so emotional and it's overwhelming, or are there other reasons?
That is the biggest reason. The way that our society thinks about death is that it is a complete loss, that the soul disappears, that their connection is the end. And it is so heart-wrenching for people. And I have to remember too that a majority of people are not connected spiritually. So for them, the communication does end. It doesn't have to, but it is, you have to work on it. As you know, it's a skill. So,
Yes.
like I always tell people when I teach my mediumship classes about connecting with past loved ones, is that it is a skill that everybody has the ability to learn. And God really does want us to stay connected, but it is a skill. Like you have to work at it. Some of us have been blessed with advanced abilities from birth, but for most people, they really have to work at it. And so that's why, since most people haven't worked on it, because it's not really part of our culture, they see that it is the end and that it's such a loss and the disconnect is there. It's so big in their mind that it's a loss and a disconnect. So that's why it's really hard for people to stay around during death. Because, first of all, we don't even talk about it as well. Like in our society, we like to always we just don't like to think about death, right? We always think about prolonging life and every our society embraces every like life-saving measure to even if the quality of life goes down just because we do fear death. We don't understand it.
And many people don't plan for it, even though it'll happen to everyone. So,
I yeah.
So
It's so true.
when I say that, I think of like estate planning or having a will, a healthcare directive. Um, yeah, it's kind of like, oh, it's almost like the mindset is it happens to other people, it won't happen to me. Is kind of like how I see it, I think. Um, or at least that's my impression. So yeah, I think you're right. There's a lot of our culture doesn't want to talk about it. We'll watch movies about it, but we don't want to realize that it happens to us.
No, you hit a really good point. It's really hard to talk to families about advanced directives, estate planning, creating a will, because everyone does push it off. Like, no, that's happening to somebody else. Like, it's not going to happen to me. But we do, we all die. And when I talk to the patients and families, I'm always like, you're where we're all going to be one day. Like, we will all get to this point where we have to cross over. So the more you can embrace it, the better off you'll be. And I do wish we can embrace it more because it is a sacred moment. I always tell clients or my patients that, you're just returning back home.
Yeah. Have you found in your work, I mean, I suppose with hospice care, they know that the end is near, and I'm guessing 95% of cases. Do you find that the patients are at peace with that? Are they scared? Are they some other emotion?
Yes, they are all of it. I would say 50-50, even though that they know they're in hospice. Well, there's some patients that are nonverbal and non-responsive and they're in hospice, but the ones that are responsive and can talk with me, it really depends. Like, it's a mix of emotions most people are feeling. It's like they understand how sick they are. They understand that this could possibly be the end. Most really kind of embrace the fact that there could be a miracle, that they could live longer, which does sometimes happen. Um, but this is the one thing that I notice. People who have faith, people who are spiritual, are always in a better state spiritually and emotionally because they understand, whatever religion is, they're always with, no matter what religion, there is always this idea that there is a divine source on the other side. I have seen that through Christianity and Catholicism, that those two, mainly Catholicism, do the best job of preparing us for the transition. And I know that Jesus calls or sees the Catholic Church as his church. And I can see why, because as I've gone more into this work, the Catholic Church, with the prayers, with the sacraments, it is really a preparation for our transition for the other side because they know that this is temporary. So the question is, those who have faith tend to be more prepared
That
and more
makes
accepting.
sense too.
Yeah.
And I feel like you answered that in a really eloquent way. So thank you. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Um,
You know what? I do have to bring this up. Being a
yeah.
student of Oracle Marine and how much spirituality and Catholicism are interlapped in her teachings and what we've learned, I've just seen more and more why Jesus has set up the Catholic Church the way it is and why he sees it as is, because it really does kind of put his wishes in action, and that is to prepare us for a transition.
And because he wants us in heaven.
Yeah.
He wants everybody in heaven, people. So I'm glad you brought up Oracle Marine again because since we are both students of hers, we're both very devoted students. I want to spend a little more time on that with you today. Um, you had mentioned you met Oracle Marine in 2019. How did you meet her? And why did you decide that you wanted to be her student?
That's a good question. So it was 2019 at the very beginning. It was at the tail end of 2018 that I was taking other spiritual classes and I didn't feel like it was enough. And I remember praying to my spirit guides to please direct me towards a teacher and a mentor. And every year, Oracle Marine does the Conscious Life Expo here in Los Angeles, which is not very far from me. And for some reason, I got free tickets, I got free parking, and I went. kind of thinking, okay, guides, please show me who my mentor is going to be. I'd really like to find one. And out of it's so crazy because the Conscious Life Expo is so busy. There's tons of readers. They take up several floors of a hotel. And I remember getting there feeling so overwhelmed. And I remember just asking, okay, please help me find the one person. And I went to the bathroom and they showed me visions of the person I had walked by. And it was Oracle Maureen, who was just going by Maureen Allen at the time.
Mm.
So I went and I had a 15-minute reading. And it was all I could afford too, because I was really struggling financially at the time. So I was like, okay, I'm only going to be able to pay for one reading. So let's do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I had a reading with her and she hit, you know, as you know, her readings are so mind-blowing. They're so on point and they just give you the guidance that you need. And she was basically like, you know, you're meant to be a spiritual worker, but you really need to find a teacher. Looks like you're going to be under me and following me because I live in Orange County and I teach classes in Orange County. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be with you forever. You know, like I
That's
just
a power,
knew.
but that's a powerful 15 minutes. That is a life-changing 15 minutes.
It was a life-changing 15 minutes, and that's all it was. And I remember walking away being so blown away with her accuracy that a few months later, she started I think, beginning psychic development class. And then I was hooked. And, you know, now that I have more insight into my connection with her, um, which I don't know if I should go into.
Uh, I would say if it's on the website, go ahead. If it's not on the website, maybe not yet. It's
Okay.
entirely up to you.
Well, my soul has been connected with her. So basically, in a way, I almost think of her and all of her students as her soulmates. Like we've all known her before, and I know that I have been a follower of her when I was in a past life when I was a female Israelite and a follower and disciple of Jesus. I also followed Mary of Bethany and Mary Magdalene when during their time on earth. So it makes sense that my soul like really resonated with her teachings here, but I didn't know at the time. You know, I didn't get the insight that I was connected to her until like almost 7 years later. But everything she did, I followed. Everything she recommended that we do in our development and our personal development, I just followed without question. And now it makes sense, knowing my soul connection to her.
That's really cool. And I think it's, gosh, I tell people this often too, because I've lived it. And I love that you shared this story because when we ask questions, there's a good chance we're going to get an answer. We just have to be patient in how we're going to receive it and when we're going to receive it. And I love that you got the free tickets, you got the free parking for whatever. Well, obviously, the reason to me is clear. And you were obviously meant to be at that expo that day. And when they were giving you the visions of Oracle Marine specifically amongst the thousands of people that are at that expo, I just think that is such a cool story.
You know, when I look back and I think, oh my gosh, how blessed I was. Because I also wasn't as spiritually confident as I was now. Like back then, I really always questioned everything, every vision, every hit that I got from my guides, every hit that I got from the Ascended Masters. I just didn't trust myself enough at the time. Like, am I discerning this right? Am I wrong? You know, but the fact that God was like really obvious about where I needed to be and to go. You know, I look back and I go, oh, I was kind of obedient. I did pay attention. And I'm really glad I did because it has been life-changing and so fulfilling and so um, just wonderful.
Yeah, to put it in a nutshell, because I feel very much the same way in my experience with Oracle Marine. Now, you had mentioned with your chaplaincy work that you had gained clarity years ago on what your mission is, why you're here, basically your goals for this life. And being a chaplain was part of that. Is was that the defining moment for you when you decided to pursue a career chaplaincy? Did you resist that guidance? Were you already wanting to go that direction before you received that guidance? How did that work out for you?
It was not as straightforward. It started about 4 years ago. In the way visions work, you get puzzle pieces, like, but
Yeah.
not the whole puzzle. And
Yep.
my grandmother had died, and it really ripped our family apart. And I remember thinking to myself, there's got to be a better way. And so I learned about hospice and how hospice can really help patients and families. So I started volunteering for hospice because I had visions of me volunteering for hospice. And then as I was taking Reiki classes, I had visions of me doing Reiki over people who were dying. So it was just these like gentle hits that I was
Yeah.
getting. And I was resistant because I look back and I go, God, it took me about 2 years to actually enroll in a master's program. Um, so it was step by step, like light pushing from my guides and God to go in that direction. But once I completed my my Master's of Arts, then I did a residency at a hospital to pursue chaplaincy. It was a year-long residency, and you do that as part of your board certification. So all of these steps I kept accomplishing. Then I would get more visions. And then as when I tail end of finishing my residency as a chaplain and getting my board certification, that's when the three ascended masters, Jesus, Mother Mary, and Kuan Yin, came in this vision, and they said, "You work for us." And that's how I knew I worked for them. And that's when Jesus had put the gold ring on my finger and showed me where he wanted me to get the ring. um, that's when I knew I was like, whoa, I'm activated at a higher level. And then my psychic abilities advanced at an even higher level where they pushed me to go even deeper in my professional work as a medium.
That's amazing.
I know it is amazing.
Yeah,
No,
I
like
mean, and
really blessed.
really, and every once in a while you hear about people who say that they're divinely guided to whatever their career is. Obviously, not everyone is called to chaplaincy like you are. I think that when we're guided that way and when we obey and surrender, a lot of magic can happen. And I feel like that's everything you just described.
I think you bring up a good point. I was very obedient, and I look back and there was times that I saw my resistance, and anytime there was really resistance, I see how things were delayed in my life. But it wasn't until I started saying, "Okay, God, have my will be your will," and really
Mm.
push me to do what you would desire, what would please you. And once I kind of started saying that, and once I started doing the harder work, um, I just became more peaceful and more, I could feel myself being more directed by them.
That's really cool. You said a good point too that I think is interesting and important to talk about is you said you became more peaceful. I've learned in for myself when I surrender in 2025, I really worked on not only telling God, your will is my will, I surrender my ego, my expectations, and my will to you. Please help me. I don't have to understand your will, but help me recognize it. And when I pushed for that for myself more in 2025, the peace I feel now versus 3, 4, 5 years ago is very different. And so my point is, I try to encourage people, and it's hard to say, your will is my will. I want to do what you want because we have our own free will. We're selfish. We're greedy. We want what we want when we want it. So it is hard. It is a struggle. It's a daily effort for me to surrender in that way. But the reward in my case is a much higher sense of peace, even through situations of discomfort, even through situations where it's stressful, whatever the situation is, there's always like that steady flow of peace that I have found in the last few years. And I think for me, it's surrendering.
I absolutely agree with what you said. But it is really hard. I've had to make a lot of sacrifices that I don't always talk about with people. I do a lot of readings for people, and one of the biggest complaints is things aren't happening as fast as they want, or they're not getting what they want. So then, does God really exist? Because he needs to prove himself by granting me my wishes. And I'm always like, oh boy, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'll kind of mention I've had struggles too. God still puts me in a lot of, I always say like a waiting period, like I'm in a holding pattern right now on certain things that I want. And, people will be surprised that I still have struggles, that I still am not getting all the things I wish and dream for, that I'm still kind of waiting to be granted that. But the payoff is so worth it. But it is really hard because every day, every moment, you have to kind of be mindful and make that shift. Like, is this my ego or is this what God wants? What does God want? Oh, God wants me to focus on work and maybe not social relationships and all this kind of things. And I have to constantly like realign. But once I do, the peace does come in, the knowing that God is pleased with me. Um, and the opportunities that appear because I have been obedient, I will notice and I will thank God for. But it is absolutely hard. I mean, you've struggled yourself. We've talked about a lot of the things that you've gone through. Um, that's not easy. And the way that God teaches lessons is so hard. It's so hard.
Oh my gosh. And I think what also makes it difficult, and like, I don't want anyone listening, I don't want anyone to be like turned off by it. Like, I always encourage people to surrender ego expectations and will to Him. But it's work, it's hard, it's difficult, especially in the world that we live in, where collectively humanity is moving further and further away from God and spirituality. And there's days, and tell me if you feel this way, because there are days where I kind of feel like I'm stuck between two different worlds. There's my everyday life, my everyday job, my earthly requirements and commitments. And then there's my spiritual work and my spiritual side, which brings me tremendous happiness and peace. And sometimes it's hard to go back and forth between the two.
No, I would agree. And the way that my guides have showed me is how I need to balance that. I always say that I stand in the in between, and it's in between of heaven and earth, the in between living and dying, and the in between spirituality and religion. Like we're meant to embrace all of that and hold this tension between the two. And I think you're very much like me, where we stand between earthly life and a spiritual life, because I know you're just as spiritual as me, and to kind of have this tension, there will always be tension. Like I don't ever think it's going to be easy. Like we're really meant to balance both and kind of have that tension between both.
I heard Father Mike Schmitz recently. Well, it was a homily that he gave a while back, and I'm catching up. He had said, and I just heard it earlier this week, pressure is privilege. And I was like, oh my God, like that resonated so deep for me. Whatever pressure you're under, it is a privilege. And so I've been trying to get in that mindset. It's only been a few days since I first heard that phrase. And so I'm trying to like embed that into me deeper so that when I do have those moments of, oh, I'm frustrated because I feel like I'm stuck between two different worlds, or for whatever reason, pressure is a privilege.
Oh, I think that's such a good point. It's kind of like advanced we get spiritually, the more that we hold higher levels of responsibility. And I do feel that. I'm so blessed and grateful to be granted the spiritual gifts, but I know it comes with so much responsibility, kind of so much pressure to please God, to please the ascended masters. And yeah, it is. You have to like balance it and hold that pressure, but it's so worth it. But sometimes it does feel like you're in a pressure cooker. But I do have to bring this point up is, the reason that I am such a follower of Jesus is he came down to earth to be our role model and he suffered the worst of the worst and he was innocent. All he was saying that he is the Son of Man, the Son of God, and no, and people crucified him for it. But yeah, he's our role model to show that God will put us under pressure, but it is for such a higher purpose and a higher meaning.
That's a great way to connect it. So I know some of the things that we've talked about today we'll touch on again in future episodes during this series. One more question I wanted to ask you. Actually, I have two more questions. The first one is for anyone who's wanting to have a deeper connection to God and Jesus, what types of things can you recommend?
Well, what I always recommend to my students to take my classes is start praying. And it doesn't have to be long, intensive prayers, but start that communication with God. And, I know Catholic prayers, please God, but if those don't feel comfortable, like just start praying. And what I mean is, dear God, I'm here. Please show me I'm here. Amen. Like, because if you're starting from zero to just do a little bit, will start bridging that gap. And definitely meditation. And I always tell people, listen, when I first started and Oracle Marine told me in that reading I needed to start meditating, I was like, ugh.
Oh my gosh, I know. She told me like I think 8 years ago now, June, they want you to start meditating. I was like, seriously? Oh my gosh, why bother? I mean, and I didn't. I ignored it. I resisted and then it came back in a different way. So, yes, I'm with you.
Yeah, but I always tell people, listen, try 30 seconds of silence, try a minute, and just try to master that first. So it doesn't feel so overwhelming. Like you don't need to get to where I am, where I meditate an hour. Like it took me a long time to get up to that. And, remember where you're at. And it's good to see where you want to be, but step by step. So prayer, little bits, meditation, little bits. Is really kind of where you start. And then this is what I always also remind my students too is we have free will. So you want to use your free will and invoke your free will. So you actually have to invoke and manifest it with your words. Dear God, I want a closer relationship with you. Dear God, I want a closer relationship with my guides and angels. Please intercede at a higher level. Please, I give you permission to merge with me and in me at a stronger level. So I hear your guidance even more. So I always say, like, keep invoking. That's how you manifest and start bridging that energetic gap.
I love that. Those are all really good suggestions for anyone at any level of their spirituality.
Yeah, and there's tons of like 1 minute guided meditations on YouTube that I remember starting with because all I could do was 1 minute.
Yeah,
But it's just building, like you're building, right? So if you're starting from nothing, just tiny bits. And as you know, the payoff to meditate, it's it's a free gift that you can give yourself that is priceless.
I agree. All it costs is some time and commitment, but we all have that.
Yeah, and there's no financial expense, but there is, time expense, but the payoff is unbelievably worth it because you do become more peaceful. You become more centered and connected to God and start aligning with your mission and purpose in life.
So our time together has gone by way too fast.
I know. I'm glad we have a whole series.
We have a whole series, so we will obviously have a lot more to talk about. Is there anything though that I didn't ask you or that you wanted to make sure to bring up today to help us to get to know you better?
Gosh, that is such a good question. I think the biggest thing, I'm not sure if it was obvious here, is that yes, I was born with some spiritual gifts already awakened, but I did have to put a lot of work, sacrifice into building my abilities to what they are now. So to show people that yes, wherever you're at, you can build those abilities. Like you don't have to be naturally born with it. And sometimes people just think that, oh, it naturally happened. But I'm like, I did so much to get to where I am and sacrifice a lot, was obedient to what
Yeah.
God wanted. So that is something I always like to just remind my students and the people who know me that I really had to put a lot of work into it.
Right. It's extremely rare for someone to just have it all at once. Um, but even those like, and so what comes to mind when I say that is like people like Teresa Caputo or Tyler Henry or James Van Prague, John Edwards, those people who are well known, but even they have limitations. So, and I don't think it's really shown much on their TV shows how much work they put into it. I'm sure they still do put a lot of work into it, such as meditation, prayer, um, other sacrifices like what they put in their body as far as food and their diet and whatever. So yes, it's a lot of work, but even they have limitations and they have TV shows. So
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. Like we don't see the backstory. We don't see the work that they put into it. And what I also tell people too is we've all had lives before this one. So we don't know how much work we put into the life before. Like maybe we sacrificed so much, brought ourselves up to a spiritual level that God was pleased with that we were able to carry it into this life. So, we just don't know. It is kind of a mystery.
that's a good point too. Okay, Ciara, how can people find you, your website, your social media? Do you have any events coming up that you want to share with people who are listening?
Yes, thank you. So you can find me at ciaratitus.com. That's CIARATITUS.com. And you can learn all about me. You'll see my events, the classes I teach. Um, and then you can, connect with me through my website, but you can also send me an email at ciaratitus.com. I do have a couple events coming up. And so on the first Wednesday of every month, I have my spiritual development mentoring. And that is almost like a coaching program for people who want to work on specific issues, like maybe you want to work on opening up your crown chakra. And one person wants to get a closer relationship with their spirit guide. So I kind of coach you, give you the guidance, and I'm along with you on that journey. That's the first Wednesday of every month. The third Wednesday of every month, I have a online practice circle, which, a group of us will get together online and we pair up into partners and we do practice readings on each other. So if you feel like dabbling, you could jump in on that. Then I have a psychic development workshop in February, February 21st, a Saturday, and then a mediumship development workshop in March, March 7th. So just make sure you check my website in case the dates and times change, but those are my upcoming events.
You're busy,
I
which is good.
am.
Which is good. Pressure is a privilege.
Exactly.
All right, my dear. Well, thank you for taking the time with me today. I look forward to seeing what the rest of the series brings and other topics that we'll be discussing. And I think it'll be a lot of fun. And I think it's a great way to kick off the new year. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. My pleasure.